Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on incident response planning. My name is Chris Bradley. I'm the CIO and VP of Managed and Cloud Solutions here at ProTech. And before we dive into today's topic, I want to take a moment to introduce ProTech to those of you who may not already be familiar with us. ProTech Services Group is a technology services firm with 30 years of experience focused on understanding the technology needs of businesses and applying a range of innovative solutions designed to help drive them forward. With a wide range of services and solutions, some of our core areas of expertise include managed services, ranging from fully outsourced IT operations to custom services designed to meet specific customer needs, cloud solutions from infrastructure as a service from large public cloud providers such as AWS and Azure to enterprise cloud and a variety of SaaS solutions. Security solutions including our managed security stack utilizing a layered approach to protecting IT and data assets, security assessments, compliance SIM and SOC services, and security awareness training and testing. Carrier and voice services providing consultative analysis and cost optimization for internet and telecom services, premise-based phone solutions, and hosted voice and call center solutions. Technology and consulting services, which range from small to large-scale IT projects to consultative engagements in any of our areas of expertise. Talent acquisition. With a full-featured staffing division, we are able to assist with temporary and permanent placement of resources with talents ranging from IT and finance to the executive level. Lastly, ProTech prides itself in being an integral part of the community through its ProTech Cares initiatives, supporting organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs of Memphis, Streets Ministries, St. Jude, and the National Civil Rights Museum, to name a few. It's within our core values to be a true technology partner and help organizations leverage technology to achieve profitability, growth, and security. Today, we're excited to have our own Chris Yancy with us to talk about incident response planning. Chris?
Thanks a lot, Chris. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us this afternoon. We've got a great topic to talk about today because it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether you're in healthcare, technology, manufacturing, large business, small business. Unfortunately, you're all subject to some sort of cyber risk. And almost every day now, we learn about another cybersecurity incident in the news. The good news is that, yes, there's many steps you can take to make sure that your company doesn't fall victim to one of these attacks. But what happens if you actually do become the victim of ransomware, a data breach, or some other type of attack? Do you know how to respond? Do your employees know how to respond? And how to recover from that attack. So, when you're in the midst of a security incident, your stress levels heightened, time is against you, time is really not your friend, unfortunately. So you need to be able to respond quickly, methodically. Any misstep could cause significant damage to your business's reputation and your bottom line. So that's where an incident response plan comes into play. It kind of shows you and allows you to think ahead, streamline your actions effectively and efficiently. The plan is going to ensure that you've accounted for every single nuance in your business operations, that you're able to comply with local, state, and federal, reporting requirements. And you've also got a solid strategy for keeping your customers informed, saving you a lot of unnecessary headaches. So we want to get into that today, and hopefully, like I said, no matter what type of business industry you're in, large business or small business, these cyber threats are out here, and we do what we can to protect you here at ProTech. But unfortunately, if you do fall victim to ransomware or a data breach, you need to be able to know what to do and what to do immediately. You really don't have time to wait. So my name is Chris Yancy. I've been with ProTech since 2018. Since that time, I've been involved in training a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals around the Mid-South on areas like security awareness training, phone system training, Microsoft applications like Office 365, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams. And I also administer ongoing managed phishing campaigns for our clients, just to help keep them prepared and trained up for cyber attacks by testing the employees' skills and measuring their progress. But today we want to look at incident response plans and how they can be of benefit to you and your business, regardless of what type of industry. So there's steps that you can put into motion today to help you minimize that damage. But first, we want to look at the root of the problem, how some businesses get to this point in the first place. So one of the best things about working in cybersecurity is that you really get to see a lot of cool ideas for help keeping your business safe. Unfortunately, on the flip side, you also get to see some pretty nasty and terrible mistakes that are leaving both yourself and your customers at risk. So before we even get into, the plan itself and talking about, incident response planning, let's talk about the most common cyber mistakes and how you can fix them. So the first mistake we want to look at is, believing that breaches are only for big events, only huge things that are happening. We know from the past few years of data that the gap of time between when a business is infected and the time that you actually realize it's been infected is growing exponentially. Cyber attacks are sometimes hard to spot, and even when you do, it's hard to tell exactly what was compromised. Conventional security teams are actually built to detect and alert large-scale incidents, which can leave smaller events unnoticed. The issue here is that these attacks can go on for a longer period of time without ever being detected and can actually do a lot more damage by slowly exfiltrating your data. Early symptoms of an attack usually show up as just a hitch in the system and are usually sent to the IT team to add to their growing list of things to do. However, when you do so, you're actually limiting the time to detect and launch a counterattack to keep your information safe. So the question is how do you avoid this? Continuous and comprehensive monitoring is the best way to detect and deter a breach. By monitoring and reporting all these anomalies to one central point, for analysis and inspection, you're taking the work off of your IT team and actually getting to an answer faster. The second most common security mistake is actually not knowing what's been compromised. So, in point number one, we figured out how to, find out about a breach faster. However, once you find out that you've been compromised, then you've got to start the process of figuring out just what's been affected, what was actually compromised. So, businesses are complex and their networks are even more so. You've got billions of access relationships, hundreds of devices that are being used, some that are, company issued, some that are, brought from home. You've got a list of vulnerabilities growing every day, and it can really seem impossible to keep track of. So the vulnerabilities aren't the only things that are growing. The list of federal and industry regulations are actually growing as well. With breaches in the news constantly, customers and employees have a new standard of expectation of security. It's really essential to keep a record of all these access relationships and what devices they have access to. You should also be able to model an attack and give your company an idea of the options that an attacker might take once they get inside your system. The next most common security mistake is actually solely relying on your IT team. So earlier I mentioned that cyber attacks can actually start as a glitch and end up on your IT ticket queue, to be seen if and when the team gets to it. By doing this, you're not only relegating that problem to an overwhelmed team, you're actually reinforcing the problem by not holding yourself, others responsible for identifying and reporting the problems. So incident management requires teamwork, not just among the IT and operations team, but throughout the whole organization to identify and alert when anything is detected on the network, when anything seems out of place and doesn't seem quite right. A response team should be formed across different departments to actually reinforce teamwork and the importance to cybersecurity. Yet another mistake is going to be not having a backup plan in place. When Amazon first started offering their Prime membership, I thought it was nuts. I thought it was crazy. I mean, who in their right mind is going to pay extra money every year just so you can get something shipped to you in 2 days? What could you possibly need that you can't wait more than 2 days for? So I will confess, not only am I a Prime member and have been for a number of years, but I've even used the Get It Now option, when I couldn't even wait more than 2 hours to get something and I needed it absolutely right now. Couldn't do without it. So wish I had thought of Amazon quite a few years ago. But in this give it to me now type of world that we're in now, it's hard to explain to people that when a cyber attack happens, it's not going to be fixed and have everything up and running perfectly again in just 2 hours. So when an attack happens, you've got to go through the steps of blocking unwanted or unauthorized access, blocking malware, closing ports and exchange servers, changing passwords, firewall filtering, and on and on and on. And these steps can't be completed in just a few hours' time. So it's important that you've got some sort of business continuity or backup plan to set up alternative working arrangements in the event that a breach does happen so that your business, your employees can keep going and you're not out of a ton of money. And the last mistake I want to talk about is actually not understanding your liabilities. Most companies spend their time worrying about lost time or damaged reputation, and rightly so, when you're exposed to a breach. But what they're overlooking a lot of times is the amount of damage that can be done with the information that was actually stolen. So, a direct implication could be, including holding the hostage, the information hostage as blackmail for a ransomware scam, which, these scams are growing year after year, and they're becoming even more problematic and becoming more widely publicized when they happen. Other implications that could include regulatory fines, breach of statutory obligations, breach of contract, breach of equitable duties, negligence. So make sure you're thinking about that and possibly sharing that with your leadership team, that these liabilities are out there, and you need to talk about that when planning your security budget. So after looking at these particular mistakes, it's important to come to grips with the fact that security incidents are bound to happen, no matter the industry or size of your business. As crucial as it is to do everything that you can to prevent an incident from happening, it's just as equally as important to know what to do in the event that one does happen. So some companies tend to focus solely on firewalls and security training and doing everything they can to prevent something from going wrong. And while that's important, especially since I teach security training, businesses should not overlook how to handle a breach in the event that one does happen to them. So that's where an incident response plan would come into play. An incident response plan is going to detail how to handle every type of compromise. Think of it as triage. It's an emergency plan that's going to establish a set of protocols, a step-by-step policy to mitigate further damage and increase the success of your recovery time. It doesn't matter if you've got 10,000 employees or if you've got 10. You need an incident response plan. And as cliche as it might sound, failing to prepare is preparing to fail in this instance. So especially if you're running a small business, having a plan is going to save you time and money. Small businesses, unlike some larger companies, can't always afford to staff large teams of IT and security professionals to monitor and respond to security events. But an incident response plan is going to be used and distributed to your entire staff as part of your standard operating procedure, allowing even non-technical people to respond effectively to a lot of security incidents instead of just giving everything to your IT team. So within the cybersecurity community, there's a general consensus in the process that an incident response plan should follow. But the phases of the process are kind of broken down into steps that change from person to person and company to company. But an example of these phases are what I'm going to talk about right now. Again, this isn't law. It's just a good rule of thumb. If you Google incident response plan, you're going to get the phone book. There's all different types out there. But these are just some sample phases you may want to think about when it comes to crafting your own. So phase one is going to be prepare. The next is identify. The third phase is contain. The fourth phase is to eradicate. The fifth phase is recover. And last but not least, we're going to review at the end. So the prepare phase is going to be the first one. And the prepare phase covers all the activities that you're going to take before an incident even happens, before it occurs. So this includes things like writing your incident response plan, getting insurance, purchasing and deploying security tools. So preparation is going to often take the most effort as well, but it's by far the most crucial step to protect, it's the most crucial phase to protect your organization. So this phase is going to include these following steps I've got listed here: ensuring that your employees receive proper training regarding their incident response roles and responsibilities, develop and regularly conduct tabletop exercises, so those incident response drill scenarios to evaluate your incident response plan, and also ensure that all aspects of your incident response plan, like training, hardware, and software resources, are approved and they're funded in advance and are in place. The next phase is the identify phase. And so you need to determine if a security incident is happening. Identification or detection is the process where you determine whether you've actually been breached by looking for deviations from normal operations and activities. So an organization normally learns they've been breached in one of four ways. So the breach is discovered internally, either through a review of intrusion detection system logs, alerting systems, system anomalies, or some antivirus scan or malware alert. Your bank would inform you that a possible breach has happened based on reports of customer credit card fraud. Law enforcement, they may discover the breach while investigating, doing some type of investigation, such as the sale of a stolen credit card information. Or a customer would complain because the organization was the last place they used their card before racking up fraudulent charges. So any one of these ways would be a way that you would be actually to identify whether or not you've been breached within your organization. The contain phase is focused on what needs to happen once an incident has been identified. So just like a doctor trying to treat a patient, the first thing you have them do is contain the threat and stop it from spreading or continuing to damage your environment. So the most common method for containment is to isolate the affected resource from the rest of the environment. You should not have to move any further in the process until you have contained the incident. Once you do have it contained, you can move to the next phase, but containment is something that you really want to focus on. When an organization becomes aware of a possible breach, it's understandable to want to fix it immediately. However, without taking the proper steps involving the right people, you can inadvertently destroy valuable forensic data. And so forensic investigators use this data to determine how and when the breach occurred, as well as devising a plan to prevent similar future attacks. So when you discover a breach, please remember, don't panic, don't make hasty decisions, and definitely don't wipe and reinstall your system just yet, because there may be valuable information on there that could be used in an investigation. Phase 4 is to eradicate. After containing the incident, you need to find and eliminate policies, procedures, or technology that actually led to the breach. So this means all malware should be securely removed. Systems should be, again, hardened, patched, and updates should be applied. Whether you use a third party to do this or you do this yourself, you really need to be thorough. Any trace of malware or security issues that remain in your system, you may still be losing sensitive data with your liability increasing in the meantime. Next, we've got phase 5, which is recover. Once you're sure the source of the incident has been eradicated, now it's time to recover. The recovery phase is where you're going to return your systems back to the operating state they were in prior to the incident. If you've been routinely backing up your data, this is where those backups, become worth their weight in gold. You're transitioning from emergency to normal operations again. During this time, it's important to get your systems and your business operations up and running again without the fear of another breach. After the cause of the breach has been identified and eradicated, you need to ensure all systems, again, have been hardened, patched, replaced, tested before you consider reintroducing the previously compromised systems back into your production environment. And last but not least, the 6th phase is going to be review. Now that things are up and running again normally, it's time to perform a review. Look at what happened and assess what you can do to prevent it from happening again. And evaluate your plan. Did you have all the necessary steps in the plan, or did you have to make adjustments? How can you make your plan better? That review step is extremely important. If you don't take the opportunity to improve your response process with the last incident that's fresh in your mind, you'll just end up repeating the same mistakes all over again. After the investigation, meet with the incident response team members and discuss what you've learned from the data breach. Reviewing the events in preparation for the next attack, because it possibly could happen, hopefully later than sooner. This is where you'll analyze everything about the breach, determine what worked well and what didn't work well in your response plan, and then revise that said plan. So these are the foundations of a robust incident response plan. Unfortunately, security incidents are unavoidable. These are there's really only 3 types of organizations: ones that have not had an incident yet, ones that are recovering from an incident, and then ones that have an ongoing incident but aren't even aware of it yet. So no matter which type you are, it's crucial to remember that an incident response plan is an important tool for you to have. Creating a plan like this is going to seem overwhelming. There's a lot to do. to help, develop that incident response plan in smaller, manageable procedures. While every business is going to need varying policies, training and documents, there's actually a few itemized response lists. A lot of these you can look up on the web, or a lot of these, you can get templates for, but there's a lot of itemized response lists that most businesses need to include in their incident response plan. And these are just a few of those. Definitely everybody's going to need an emergency contact and communications list, a system backup and recovery process list, a JUMPBAG list, a security policy and review list. And we're actually going to talk about all four of those because we really need to make sure that if you've already have an incident response plan in place, make sure you've got each one of these lists somewhere within your plan. Or if you're in the process of developing it now or in the near future, you definitely want to make sure that these four lists are definitely part of your plan. So we're going to start with that emergency contact and communications list. Proper communication is going to be critical to successfully managing a data breach, which is why you need to document a thorough emergency contact and communications list. So that list should include information about who to contact, how to reach out to these contacts, when it's the appropriate time to reach out, and then what you need to say. In this list, you should document everything or everyone that needs to be contacted in the event of a data breach, such as the following individuals: your response team, your executive team, legal team, if you've got a third-party forensics company, or if you've employed someone like ProTech, you definitely need to reach out to them. Public relations, to get in touch with the media, affected individuals, your customers, law enforcement, if we need to pull them involved, and definitely any merchant processors that you've employed to find out about your financials. So you need to determine how and when these notifications will be made. Several states have legislated mandatory timeframes that dictate when a company must make notifications to, the customers, cardholders, law enforcement. So you should be aware of the laws in your state and have instructions in your incident response plan that outline how you're going to make those mandated notifications. Your incident response team should craft specific statements that target the various audiences, including a holding statement, press release, customer statement, internal and employee statements. So all of these need to be crafted within your incident response plan, ready to go, so you don't have to waste time trying to craft them or come up with something on the fly. For example, you should have pre-prepared emails and talking points ready to go after a data breach has happened. So all of this needs to be a part of that plan. Your statements should address questions like, which locations were affected by the breach? How was it discovered? Is there any personal data that's been at risk? How will it affect customers in the community? What services or assistance, if any, you're going to provide to your customers? And then when will you'll be back up and running? And what will you do to prevent this from happening again? All these are questions that I, as a consumer or customer, would want to know if someone that I place my trust in my business in, has suffered from ransomware or a data breach. So definitely you want to make sure that you address all of these statements or all these questions in the plan. So identify in advance the person within your organization, perhaps your inside legal counsel, any newly hired breach management firm you've got, C-level executives that you've got, that's going to be responsible for ensuring the notifications and that are made timely and fulfill your state-specific requirements. Your public response to the data breach is going to be judged really heavily, so you really need to be able to think that through. Your system backup and recovery process list. So this list is going to help you deal with the technical aspects of a data breach. So here's some things that should be included on this list. Your process from disconnecting to the internet. Who's going to be responsible to decide whether or not you disconnect? That needs to be thought about. System configuration diagrams that include the information like device descriptions, IP addresses, operating system information, process for switching to redundant systems and preserving evidence, process for preserving evidence such as logs and timestamps, practices to test the full system backup and system recovery, and then also steps to test and verify that any compromised systems are clean and fully functional. So this list is meant to help you preserve any compromised data, quickly handle that data breach, and preserve your systems through any backups. So hopefully by creating and implementing this list, your company can lessen the additional data loss that would occur and help you return back to normal as quickly as possible. Your jump bag list is actually going to be for grab and go responses. So for example, when you need to respond to a breach really quickly. So this list should include overall responses and actions from that employees need to take immediately after a breach. Your list is going to help keep your plan organized and prevent mistakes being caused by panic. So some things to include in your jump bag list are going to be these things that are listed here. Incident handler's journal to document the incident, the who, what, why, and when. The incident response team contact list, USB hard drives and write blockers, multi-hubs, things like flashlights, pens, notebooks, all of your documented lists. Anything that's going to help boot up your OS, your operating system, your computer definitely, or network toolkit, hard duplicators with write block capabilities, and then forensic tools and software if it's going to be done in-house and not externally. So all these things need to be a part of your jump bag. Jump bags are something that actually can be pre-purchased from a lot of vendors. So look into that. But you definitely want to create a jump bag if you're not just going to purchase one that's ready to go. Keep in mind that that's something that you want to have on hand with you. And then the security policy review list. This list is going to deal with responses to a breach and its aftermath. So the list is going to help you analyze the breach, help you know what you can learn and change afterwards. Your security policy list should include documentations of all these things. When the breach was detected, by whom, and what method was it detected, the scope of the incident or affected systems, data that was put at risk, how the breach was contained and eradicated, work performed or changes made to the system during recovery, areas where the response plan was effective, and also areas that need improvement, which security controls failed, improvements to security awareness programs, things like that. So you should look at where your security controls failed and think about how to improve them. The purpose of this list is to document the entire incident, what was done, what worked, what didn't work, and what was learned. An incident response plan is only going to be useful if it's properly established and followed by the employees. To help the staff, you should regularly test their reactions through real-life simulations, the same way that we do managed phishing campaigns, and we send out scenarios and send out simulations through email to see how employees are going to react. It would not hurt to create, some sort of real life simulation or what's known as a tabletop exercise that's going to allow employees to learn about and practice their incident response roles, when actually nothing is at stake. When there's not an incident going on, it doesn't hurt to keep practicing those skills to find out if the employees know exactly what to do. And that's only going to help you discover gaps in your plan, communication issues, things like that, things that are going to really help you shore up that incident response plan. So if you don't already have an incident response plan in place, making one should be your top priority. Regularly practice and review that plan. Without it, your staff could really be making poor decisions, which could make a breach impact a lot worse. So a data breach can be an organization's most stressful situation that it's going to encounter, but it doesn't have to be the end of your organization. So keep that in mind. No one wants to be breached. No one wants to be a victim of ransomware, but it doesn't mean the end of your business if you can follow the steps of your plan to a T. So it's important to discover that breach quickly, identify where it's coming from, pinpoint what it actually affected. So by following your incident response plan, you can really avoid significant brand damage. Please consider setting some time aside to create or update your plan. I want to thank you all for attending this webinar today. Please reach out to ProTech with any of your security needs. And in closing, I'm going to hand this back over to our CIO, Chris Bradley.
So thank you for joining us today for our presentation. If we were unable to answer your questions through the presentation and you have others, please feel free to reach out to us at the contact information on this screen. Hope you found today's information beneficial, and we hope to see you again on our next webinar. Thanks and have a great day.